Welcome to Lavender Town Radio, where shadows whisper and every story hides a darker truth. Tonight, let me take you deeper into the world of Pokémon you were never meant to see.
My name is Ilara. They say I was lucky. They say it was a miracle that my daughter, Lily, and I made it off that mountain alive. I smile, I nod, and I thank them. But lucky is not the word I would use. Luck doesn't leave scars on your mind, echoes of a world turned on its side. We came to Lavender for a vacation, a quiet place, famous for its hot springs and the crisp mountain air. The plan was simple: relax, hike, and watch my 6-year-old daughter, Lily, see a spoink bounce on its pearl for the first time. Before the trip, I'd read some disturbing news reports, a string of bizarre accidents on the western trails of Mount Chimney. Experienced hikers, skilled mountaineers, all found dead at the bottom of cliffs. The official cause was always a careless slip, but the local travel forums whispered a different story, a rumor about the dizzying spiral. They said there were strange spiral symbols carved into the rocks and trees in that area. If you saw one, it was already too late. Your world would begin to tilt, and a single wrong step would become a fatal plunge. I told myself it was just superstition, and that we would stay clear of that area. That day, we were walking on a safe trail at the base of the mountain. Lily was laughing, chasing a lullaby. I turned away for just a second to get a water bottle from my backpack. When I looked back, she was gone. Panic hit me like a wave of cold water. "Lily!" I screamed. Only the wind answered. But then I saw them, her small footprints leading off the main path and up a narrower, gravel-strewn trail, a trail that led west, towards the site of the accidents. I had no choice. I had read the news. I knew the rumors. But my daughter was up there. I took a deep breath, the smell of sulfur filling my lungs, and started to run.
The locals call it the dizzying spiral. If you see it, it has already seen you. The western trail was treacherous. Volcanic ash made every step a potential slide. The air was hot and thick, and the silence of the mountain was unnerving. I kept calling Lily's name, my voice cracking with fear. After about 20 frantic minutes, I saw it. Carved into a black rock, almost hidden in the shadows, was a clumsy spiral. It didn't look man-made. The lines were wobbly, as if drawn by someone drunk. I shivered, remembering the rumors, but then brushed it off. It was just a drawing. I had to keep going. But a few minutes later, I started to feel strange, a slight dizziness, like when you stand up too fast. I blamed it on dehydration and stress. I braced myself against a rock wall to steady myself and pushed on. The path grew narrower, with a sheer cliff on one side and a deep chasm on the other. I began to feel as if the ground itself was slightly tilted, just a fraction, like walking on the deck of a gently rocking ship. "It's just in my head," I told myself, my heart pounding. "Focus, Ilara." And then I found him. He was at the bottom of a small ravine, about 10 meters below the path. Dressed in the uniform of a Pokémon ranger, his body was twisted at an unnatural angle. His neck was broken, but there were no signs of a struggle. Just an open backpack and a small notebook lying a few feet away. Trembling, I climbed down. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to know. I picked up the notebook. It was partially damp, but the last entry was still legible. Day 3. Confirmed, not seismic. Something is affecting the victim's spatio-perceptual abilities. Footprints before the fall show sudden, severe disequilibrium. Found 3 more spiral markings. They are territorial. Hypothesis: a pack of Spinda. Not normal. Their dance must generate some kind of infrasound or hypnotic effect that disrupts inner ear function. Cumulative exposure. The longer the exposure, the stronger the effect. Must locate their source. Maybe a loud noise. The writing ended there. A long, jagged ink streak trailed off the page as if he'd been violently jolted while writing. He wasn't another victim. He was the investigator, and he had become the final piece of evidence. A cold, absolute fear washed over me. This wasn't a curse. It was a biological phenomenon, a natural weapon, and I had walked right into its territory.
He wasn't a fallen hiker. He was a ranger investigating the falls, and he became the final piece of evidence. I scrambled back to the path, the ranger's notebook clutched in my pocket. Now I knew what I was facing, but it didn't make me any less afraid. It made it worse. The tilting sensation grew stronger. The ground beneath my feet was no longer stable. It swayed and buckled like the surface of the sea. I had to get down on all fours, clinging to the jagged rocks to keep from falling. The sky and the earth seemed to be trading places. The buzzing in my ears grew louder. I saw more spirals. They were everywhere, on trees, on rocks, even drawn in the ash with small pebbles. It was a network, a giant trap. And then I heard Lily cry. It was faint, carried on the wind, but it was her. "Mommy!" A surge of adrenaline overrode the fear. I didn't care about the dizziness anymore. I crawled towards the sound, sharp gravel cutting into my palms and knees. I pulled myself over a rocky ledge and saw her. Lily was there, about 50 meters away. She was sitting on a flat, seemingly safe ledge. She was crying, but not out of fear, out of wonder. Because she wasn't alone. She was in the middle of a small clearing, and all around her were them. Dozens of Spinda. They weren't aggressive. They were just dancing. Each one swayed to its own rhythm, lurching and spinning. And as they moved, the spiral patterns on their bodies seemed to pulse and ripple. It was the source of the nightmare, a symphony of disorientation. They were creating a perceptual storm, and my daughter was in the eye of it. My daughter wasn't lost. She was in the eye of the storm, a storm made of dancing nightmares. I tried to stand, to walk towards her, but as soon as I entered the clearing, my world fell apart. The gentle tilting from before was nothing compared to this. The ground beneath me turned to liquid. Gravity seemed to pull me sideways. I fell face first into the ash. I tried to crawl, but every movement was torture. My stomach churned with nausea. The blue sky and brown earth blended into an indistinct, muddy color. I saw Lily through a hazy blur. She seemed unaffected. Maybe children were immune. Or maybe she'd been there long enough for her brain to adapt. She was pointing at the Spinda and giggling, as if watching a private circus. "Look, Mommy, they're dancing for me," she called out. I had to get her out of there. I tried to call her name, but my words came out as a distorted groan. I remembered the ranger's notebook, a loud noise. I fumbled in my torn backpack. Nothing, just an empty water bottle, some snacks, and a personal alarm. A gift from my husband, Kyle,
who was always overprotective. I'd never used it. It was my only chance. I used the last of my strength, pushed myself up on my elbows, and pulled the pin on the alarm. To save my daughter, I had to break their dance. I had one chance and a single scream. A piercing electronic shriek tore through the air, overriding even the sound of the wind. The reaction was immediate. The Spinda stopped dancing in unison. They startled, stumbling into each other. Their perfect hypnotic synchronicity was broken. And instantly, my world snapped back into place. It felt like being dropped from a great height. The ground was suddenly solid, gravity was back where it should be, the sky and earth separated. The abrupt change made me vomit violently into the ash. But I was lucid. The screeching alarm startled Lily, and she began to cry in fear. The Spinda, confused and disoriented, began to lurch away, disappearing into the crevices of the rocks. This was our chance. "Lily, run to me!" I yelled, my voice raw. I scrambled towards her, stumbling on my still shaky legs. I grabbed her and held her tight, a painful wave of relief washing over me. "Mommy, that noise is scary." "I know, baby. We're going home." We didn't look back. We ran. We ran from that clearing, past the spirals on the rocks, past the place where the ranger had fallen. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs were numb. We ran until the safe rooftops of Lavender came into view.
We escaped the mountain, but I took its dizziness with me. A part of me will always be falling. We were safe. The authorities listened to my story, and coupled with the ranger's notebook, they permanently closed the Western Trail. They called it a dangerous natural phenomenon. Lily has almost forgotten the whole thing. To her, it was a strange adventure where she met some funny dancing Pokémon. She has no idea how close she came to death. It was a happy ending. I found my daughter. We both survived. But I am not the same. Sometimes, even now, in my safe apartment in Mauville, I feel it. A very faint tilting sensation. When I walk down the stairs, I have to grip the railing tightly. When I look at a spiral pattern on a dress, my stomach lurches. The mountain left a scar on my mind, a glitch in my equilibrium. I saved my daughter, but I lost my trust in the ground beneath my feet. They say I was lucky, but sometimes at night, I dream I'm still on that path. The ground is swaying, and I am falling. I am always falling. And I know that a part of me will never truly escape their dance. The signal fades, but the darkness lingers. This was Lavender Town Radio.